What's up, YouTube? It's Josh Palaut, the RuneScape Felon, finally back with a video that's only, hopefully, one day late this time. So today I'll be remaking a video that I actually made several months ago that, for some reason I couldn't make Adobe work, and then, it was because of my editing program, that's what it was, I forgot, or I didn't have a graphics card that was good enough at the time to render my Adobe Premiere Pro edits. But shout out to my very good friend Dylan Newton, one of my best friends on the internet. He mailed me his graphics card a few months ago to borrow, and it's been rendering fine since then. So let's redo this. Today we're going to address the topic of the relationship between COs and inmates. Spoiler alert, in general, it's not very good. So for those of you who are unaware, CO stands for Corrections Officer. It's basically a prison guard. The watcher, compared to the relationship with those guys and the inmates, which is the watched. The keepers and the kept very, very rarely get along in pretty much any scenario anywhere in history that you can find. Before we get all the way into this, I'd like to start off by saying that when I speak, I'm speaking in generalities. I'm speaking in the terms of the majority. I'm not saying that every single CO is like this. I'm speaking in general, absolutely. There are very, very kind, good people that are COs, and I'm going to make sure that I give an equal amount of stories. I've got 3 examples of each here, of good COs that were very well respected by inmates and basically treated like royalty, and were never given any problems at all because of their stand-up character and their treatment of us like equals. So I'm not only looking at the bad here. I do stand by this statement, though. Most prison guards can't stand us. If not necessarily they can't stand us, they've been trained to not think of us as human. It's very, very clear in their training to become COs that they're like, don't trust them, don't turn your back on them, don't listen to a thing they say, don't do anything for them. They are not people, they are your enemies, and they will kill you. Like, it's very, very clear to me that the training to become a CO involves a lot of like addressing trickery or, just basically a foundation of do not trust them and don't treat them like people under any circumstances. And I do understand that to a big extent because, to be fair, on our side of it, most of the time if an inmate gives a CO an inch, he wants 30 miles. So it's a very slippery slope to go down. And it would seem that most COs don't want to go down it. So I'm like, let me reemphasize that inmates definitely aren't in general good people either. But this is still about the nature of the keepers and the kept and what that looks like on a day-to-day basis. So I've got 3 examples of COs either being horrible at their jobs, not doing what they're supposed to, or flat out treating us like absolute trash. And I've got 3 examples of COs that if I were to ever become rich and famous, I'd probably try to find them and give them a 50% increase of their pay to do some menial task like sell hats for me or something, just to thank them for being good people. There's a phrase that says, don't judge a man by how he treats his superiors, but by how he treats his inferiors. And I learned that very, very seriously in prison. So let's jump right into it. This is one that I think that most people are going to be cool with, but it's also a fine example of a CO not doing his job in the way that he is instructed. As we all know, some people go to prison for terrible things. Some people go to prison for the most evil crimes imaginable in our collective morals. And what I'm specifically referring to in this particular instance is people who have an attraction to children. This is a disease of the mind in a very sick way. And I'm not expecting anybody to feel bad for this guy, but technically it wasn't supposed to go down like this if the COs had been doing their job. So this one you could probably already view as kind of a middle ground between, them doing something bad and them doing something good. Because it's kind of like they should have been doing their job, but at the same time, this is the same thing that the inmates would have wanted. And everybody can kind of agree on this one. So it's interesting. I'll be starting this one off with kind of a yin-yang. At the Federal Correctional Institute of Talladega, which is where I've done the most single amount of time, I was at that prison for about 26 months on my first sentence. It's a medium/high security, which basically means it's got like enough gates to be a high security, but it's still kind of like a medium security. I did end up going to a medium-high in my sentence because of the fact that I was basically in for conspiracy to commit mass murder. I was in the youngest age group, which makes you, highest possibility of violence, plus a violent crime, plus I dropped out of high school. Even though I had a GED, you still get extra prison designation points to go to a worse prison for having gotten a GED. So, and being under 25 automatically gives you a few more points, and these points add up and can send you to some of the most rockin' and rollin' violent prisons in America. And I was only like 2 points away from going to the penitentiary. State level prisons call pretty much all prisons penitentiaries, but in the feds, the United States Penitentiary, the USP, is the high security That's the killing fields, almost all of them, except for a few of them. And if anybody's been to any of those USPs, you already know there's something messed up with their case because they put them specifically at high security prisons for sex offenders, snitches, and gang dropouts. So let's get started on this. Talladega. There was a young man there. He was a Native American, and for those who don't know, all crimes committed on Native American territories are considered federal. It doesn't matter if it's a DUI or if you pee on a mailbox or something stupid like that. It's a federal crime because that's federal property. They don't really have a typical state or local level prosecution, and therefore if you get arrested from there, you're going to federal prison for whatever crime it may be that you committed, no matter how severe or minor. But there was a Native American kid, and I don't really want to go into too terribly much detail about what he did, especially now that I've got a daughter. It was bad to begin with, but now that I've got a daughter, we're just not going to address it too much, but it did involve a very young girl that was apparently about 4 years old. Well, the dude was doing his best. He had just arrived at the prison. He was doing his best to try and keep it under wraps, to not let people know, and it's just about impossible because if you don't come forward with some kind of paperwork, somebody's going to get on their phone with their wife or their girlfriend, and they're going to try to secretly give them codes and shit to where they will Google you, and they will find out what the hell you're in there for. So if you don't come up with some proof pretty quickly, that's pretty much a dead giveaway. I had no problem confirming that I was, in fact, a domestic terrorist on paper. I'm not actually a domestic terrorist. My mom mailed me some articles in before I could get my appeals paperwork back, which you're not supposed to show to other inmates, but we all do, because if you don't, you got something to hide. And it was clear that I was neither a sex offender nor a tattletale, especially because I got triple my recommended sentence. That doesn't happen when you're a snitch. So word was getting around about this guy. People were very suspicious about him. He had a very soft-spoken, strange voice, like he was lightly mentally ill or something like that. And I don't mean slow. The dude was fully mentally capable if he wanted to be. He was just a fucking weirdo, okay? Well, I remember the day that somebody decided to get their girl to Google him. And word spread fast. 4-year-old was going around the compound. My daughter's yelling. It's okay, baby, I got you. And I happened to be visiting the unit that he lived in, which is against the rules, but I had a friend in that unit, that cell block that I went to go see, and sometimes the COs can be cool with that. They let you slide over to another unit for like an hour. They're not really supposed to, but some of them are all right, guys. Let you go in there. And, yeah. All of a sudden, about halfway through my visit to this particular unit, about 9 people converged on that guy's cell. Word and confirmation had finally gotten around that he did what he did and he had done what he had done, and there were some people that had some things to say about that, and they didn't use their words to say it, they used their boots. So they, it was very obvious. They made no secret of hiding this, no attempt to hide this. They came pretty much all out of the white supremacist guy's cell, 9 people, in a cell that is the size of from my amplifier to me. Came down in a single file line down the stairs from the second floor of the block and straight into that guy's cell, where his cellmate immediately exited. Because his cellmate wasn't in any trouble. His cellmate was fine. He'd been there for a while, right? Well, somehow, during the ensuing tussle, the guy managed to kick the door open, and the screams coming from that cell were something fearsome to behold, unless you know why it's happening, in which case it's a lot less fearsome. And I think maybe 10 seconds into this incident, the door got flown open, and he couldn't get out, obviously, but he was screaming. The CO was like 20 feet away from this guy's door, walking up towards it, because he was doing his rounds. He heard the yelling. You could see him look at the cell number. He turned around and walked back the way he came, but he did hit the deuces, which is where they hit the alarm on their walkie-talkie that makes all the available COs come running to back up a violent situation. Protocol states that he's supposed to run in that cell and save the guy and beat these people away and, save his life and spray him with mace if he has to or whatever. Yeah, he wasn't interested in all that. He looked very thoroughly, completely non-concerned about this situation. The guy ended up having some very, very serious injuries. He did not die. He did survive. They didn't use any knives on him or anything like they probably wanted to, but maybe they figured 9 was enough to kill him. And the dude ended up losing vision in one of his eyes, pretty much looked like he was missing an eyebrow, and he had so much blood on him when he came out of the cell that it looked like he was wearing a Spider-Man mask. Had that CO done his job the way that the textbook dictates, that wouldn't have happened to that guy. He would have gotten saved a lot earlier. Maybe he wouldn't have lost vision in his eye. But let's all just say that his victim probably lost a lot more than just an eye. Something inside, and that's more what the inmates were concerned about. So there was a little bit of prison justice there. And that CO decided to let it slide, and not very many people were bothered by that. Speaking on a similar topic that's Slightly different, but still about complete inaction on the part of COs. And I saw something very similar to this when I was in county jail as well. There's an old school Mexican cat, and he was affiliated with the gang. I'm not throwing any names out there or anything. And he's all tatted up, face tats, but he had gotten old now. He's probably in his mid-50s, I'd say. He was prone to seizures. His nickname behind his back on the compound was Helmet, because he actually had a medical-issued helmet to help. That he needed to wear pretty much all the time, because he'd have a seizure at any time and fall over and bust his head open, right? And he had a helmet. And one day, right in the middle of watching TV in our unit, he had a seizure. He had a full-fledged seizure. I didn't see it when it started, but I caught the ass end of it. And, I mean, when I saw him, he was just laying sideways on the ground having a full-fledged seizure. And the COs barely responded. CO came out of our office, hit the deuces like he's supposed to, and just stood there. I don't know if protocol says that he's not supposed to help the guy, but when the other COs got there and they were waiting on medical, nobody touched him, nobody talked to him, nobody asked him how he was doing. When he came out of it dazed and confused and didn't seem to remember having the seizure. And the COs tried to talk him out of going to medical. They tried to say, man, you're fine, you're good. I saw that exact same thing in county jail one time where they tried to talk a guy out of requesting medical help. That guy ended up going to the hospital. It turned out that he had something very, very serious going on with him, that he ended up being released from prison because our county jail didn't want to have to, or from jail, sorry. He ended up being released from county jail because our county jail did not want to pay for the surgeries that he was going to need. So there's a little bit of, crooked corruption there. You can get off the hook for a pretty severe crime, and it's not even a compassionate release like it should be, where like, okay, this guy didn't have cancer, but like, let's say, for example, if you're dying of cancer, sometimes they'll mitigate your sentence, let you out early, if they're pretty convinced that you're dying of cancer and not going to be a threat to society. Well, with this guy, they just didn't want to pay his bills. He needed a heart surgery or something, or like a brain surgery, and they were just like, all right, whatever he did, screw that. We're not paying for that. Let's just let him go, and they did. But this old school guy, man, the fact that they tried to convince him to stay there was just absurd to me, because they knew that one of them was going to have to get in touch with somebody and bring him up front to the exit point. They're going to have to bring him into society and bring him to the hospital, and they just didn't want to do it. Nobody, I don't think, at any job wants to do more work than they really can get away with, I guess. And this was going to be a little bit too much for them. And they tried convincing this man that he didn't need to go to the hospital after he just had a major seizure. And I'm talking a full-fledged foaming at the mouth, seizing on the ground type seizure. And he ended up being okay, but the fact that they largely ignored him, and I get it, they're probably not supposed to touch him until medical gets there. They're not medical personnel, Medical showed up, they put him on a stretcher, they wheeled him the hell out of there, and they did take him to a damn hospital. But overhearing these snide remarks from these guys, you really think you need a hospital, man? You look fine to me. No, man, you're good. You're looking healthy. This dude was Hispanic, and he looked a lot whiter than me. He was so pale from the seizure, man. And it was really heartbreaking to see what little help that he was getting, because he committed a crime at some point in his life, I mean, I guess that the mindset is that criminals aren't human. But it was disgusting to me, man. Last example of, something just flat out wrong on their part, and I could come up with hundreds of these, and these aren't even three of the best ones, they're just three that I had off the top of my head, is at the end of my sentence, I was in the hole. I was in solitary confinement in the special housing unit, the disciplinary bay, with my friend Chris, because we had gotten in trouble in possession of something that we were not supposed to have. And they wanted to transfer us to other prisons, but we were both at the end of our sentence. It wasn't worth the money to them, so they decided we were going to stay in the SHU. And we were in the SHU. And for no reason, they decided to shake us down. And I understand, that's part of it. They're allowed to do that. I get that. But normally it's warranted when you're in the SHU. Like I said, most COs don't want to do more work than they need to do. So why the hell was this guy tripping about, coming out and shaking all my stuff down? And we were just sitting in there, and we never gave them any trouble. That's the thing. I understand if you're disrespectful to one of them, or if you don't want to give your tray back, whenever they're picking up the food. There's a lot of reasons that can cause you to bring a shakedown on yourself. But we legitimately didn't, man. We were always very, very respectful to these COs. They were, even when they were dicks, to be blunt, Mostly because we just wanted to not rock the boat, man. We didn't want to get shook down. And this is a screw up on my part, too, because unbeknownst to them, Chris and I have been doing pick and poke, or as they say on the streets, apparently stick and poke tattoos with a staple on each other, right? I'd attached it to the end of a very small pin and hidden it in a piece of paper, tucked up under the corner of the welding of my prison rack. And let me just say that I never expected them to actually find that there, you know what I mean? But they did. And the thing about it is, if you have any kind of tattoo needles, a lot of times you won't get in trouble for it if you let them know. I wasn't thinking about that tattoo, and even if that tattoo needle, and even if I had, I wouldn't have considered that they would find it. And the thing with that is, tattoo needles are dirty, man. You poke yourself with one of them, you could get HIV, you could get hepatitis C. There's all kinds of things. It's a bloodborne illness magnet, basically. And so, unfortunately, they found it. The guy did not prick himself with it, but I have seen inmates take real tattoo needles and they put them like in between two pieces of tape and write tattoo on it with both of the tips and points of it like really closed off. And I've seen inmate COs find that and throw it away and them not get any trouble for it because it was very safely labeled tattoo needle. And so when they looked at it, they said, oh shit, okay, this is a tattoo needle. Just in case they find it, it's the respectful, proper thing to do. Us sitting in the SHU, we weren't really concerned about that as much because shakedowns happen a lot more rarely back there. Since they had moved us out into a shower temporarily, they didn't turn the water on. I mean, they locked me and my cellmate Chris in the shower, locked us in there, and went to destroy our cell. They pop up at the window. You had a tattoo needle? You had a tattoo needle? You had a tattoo needle? To which I informed them, I came up with some stupid excuse because it was only poking out like this far. And I was like, no, man, the pin broke and I put it in there because I was like, holy shit, they found it. I never would have guessed. And I know that if they know that it really is a tattoo needle. And he said, I almost poked myself with that. I was like, man, I mean, it might be a little sharp on the end, but we haven't used that for any tattoos. Look, bro, I don't have any. They'd already healed up. We hadn't done any in 3 or 4 weeks. When I got back to that cell, man, they had destroyed my personal property. They had ripped up the letters and the photos that I had gotten. My songs, a lot of you guys will know that I have a huge binder full of hundreds of songs I wrote when I was locked up. Crumbled up and dashed around the room. The ones that I'd written in there, I didn't have access to all of them. They were in storage of my property. But the ones that I had written back there were crumbled up, not torn, thankfully. Stomped on. My mattresses were flipped over. They took away all of our toilet paper, which ended up being an issue in and of itself. It was very, very illegal and against the rules what they did. When they opened the door to it, I mean, you couldn't even see anything in our room. It was so trash. They destroyed, shredded everything, threw it everywhere. Just absolute destruction. And I asked for a write-up, and they didn't give me one. I was going to write them up for that. That's against the rules. That is totally unacceptable, and they just refused to give me one, man. That's just about corruption at its finest. That old Latin phrase that I'm going to say in English is, who will guard the guardians? I mean, they're in charge. What the fuck am I supposed to do? Complain to them? Hey, man, I'm writing you up. No, you're not. Good luck, What the hell can I do? A BP-8 form is what you fill out to, file a complaint against the CO, and they absolutely refused to give me one. My only action that was possible later that day was to jack the beanhole, stick my arm out of the food flap, and hold it until they gave us more toilet paper because they took away all our damn toilet paper, man. That's inhumane, and they did that shit as a punishment and on purpose. So let's get to some of the bright sides, guys. When I first got locked up, I was actively addicted to opiates and alcohol, and those are two hellacious things to go through withdrawals from. And probably less than 24 hours after I got arrested, I was in a pretty bad way. I was having chest pains and I couldn't keep my food down. I was throwing up and I was starving, but I couldn't keep any food down. And I had the sweats and the runs and all that wonderful, wonderful stuff that comes with making bad lifestyle choices. And a CO walked up to the gate, looked at me riding around on my cell. By myself, I was in a solo cell in booking at the time. I'd just gotten arrested the day before. And he just scoffed at me and said, junkie. Because they know, a lot of junkies come to jail, and I was a junkie, and so I'm going in there, and I'm flopped out, writhing around on the floor, and I was so hot that I'd poured water out of my sink onto the stone floor and was laying in it with my shirt off, just like in my boxers, trying to cool down, because my body temperature was spiking, man. It was awful, and they were all laughing at me, and et cetera, et cetera, and I asked the guy if I could have any medicine. He said only the nurse can give out medicine. Well, the shift changed, and a very young guy, not very young, I mean, he's 2 years older than me, I think, he came in. He walked up to the cell, and I was just absolutely destroyed, man. I mean, I was in a bad way. And the guy goes, holy shit, man, are you okay? I said, I think I'm going to be all right, man. And he was like, you an addict, man? And I was like, yeah, dude. Yeah, I'm withdrawing real bad, man. I'm kicking, I'm sick. And he was like, hang on, man. This dude went and got me a cup of ice water, man. And this is very early in my incarceration. And I was unaware as of yet of what a big deal that was, how rule bending that kind of is, and how it really goes against the norm, and how he did that from the goodness of his heart. He handed me a cup of ice water and 2 ibuprofen. It was straight up illegal for him to give me those ibuprofen. And I don't know if it really helped my body, but it helped my mental enough to make my body feel a little bit better. That compassion that guy showed me after having been called a junkie by all of his colleagues. And that was hands down one of the kinder things that a CO ever did for me during my term of incarceration. I can't remember this other CO's name, but his name starts with a W. And he was one of the last COs. When me and Chris were cellmates, he was the CO on that SHU. And he was not involved in the shakedown that I just mentioned. He didn't destroy any of my shit. He was a very friendly guy. And oh my goodness, I just remembered his name. I'm very glad that I suddenly remembered it. you were never under any circumstances supposed to pass things from one cell to another for inmates. When you open that flap, if an inmate says, hey, can you hand this to the cell next door, they're supposed to slam that gate back shut. There's no telling what kind of contraband you can get from point A to point B, but the fact of the matter is, most people are not trying to pass contraband. They want to pass magazines, or their homie can't afford deodorant, and they're good friends with them. They want to send them a deodorant down there so a cellmate has a little bit of relief, you know? And this guy used to do it for us, man. He didn't care if it was a book, if it was a magazine, if it was deodorant, soap, as long as it wasn't something that was just like, if you'd have handed him like a folded up note, he'd have probably thrown it in the garbage because that could be something sketchy. And we can pass notes ourselves with fishing lines, but I'll make a video about that one day. And this dude had a real good sense of humor. He was very, very humble. And let me tell you, it's rough to be that guy. And I don't think that he had like some fear of saying no or anything, but let me tell you, when people found out they did that, almost every cell that he stopped at needed something moved somewhere. You know, hey man, hand this Rolling Stone magazine down the way. Yo, my homie's trying to read this book. Hey man, my homeboy just got back here. He needs some soap. Can you hand him the soap? He always did it, man. He always stopped to take the time to go open the cell, or really he would go about his rounds, but he would remember what cell number that you asked him to give this thing to, and it's against the rules. Flat out, straight up, 100% no in prison. It's straight up against the rules for him to do this. And he talked to us like people. Anytime that I lodged a complaint with him, like one time we had a toilet that got clogged up. This dude went and grabbed a snake and cleaned the shit out himself, you know, and cleaned it for us. And the day that was 3 days before I got out of prison was his last shift while I was still going to be inside. You know, it was like a Tuesday or something, and it was his Friday. And he was making his rounds. I knocked on the door, and I said, hey, man. Called him by name, and he looked at me, and I'm sure he expected me to ask him to do something for me, but he still walked over to the door. I said, let me holler at you real quick. He came up to the door. You know, they got little speaker hole box things in it that no liquids can go through, so you can't spit on them, but they can hear you talk. And I said, man, I told him the same thing I said at the beginning of this video. I said, man, people say that you're supposed to judge a man by how he treats his inferiors, not his superiors. And I just want to tell you, I have nothing but utmost respect for you, dude. And I'm sure you've probably never heard this because inmates are a bunch of ingrates, but I respect you and I appreciate you, man, and thank you. You don't know what you can do for somebody's mindset. Just the small act of treating them like a human instead of an animal in a cage, man. You don't know what that can do for somebody. And you've helped make my life easier. You've helped make his life easier. And I promise you, if you're ever working the compound out there on the prison yard and these inmates are out there on your unit, they're not going to give you any trouble, bro. Because inmates will oftentimes avoid doing illicit things during the shift of a CO that is very cool and laid back. You don't want to make him have to do his job. They're not going to make his job any harder than he's letting it be. And if he's laid back with us, they're going to be laid back with him. It's a mutual respect thing. He treats us like people. We treat him like a person, you know. We treat him like we give him respect, you know. And you're never going to want to be buddy-buddy with him because that's just kind of suspicious, and they're going to start thinking you're a snitch or something like that. You don't ever want to be buddy-buddy, you know. But sometimes they're good people, and it needs to be acknowledged and appreciated. So last but not least, tying in with what I just said, there was a CO at Talladega. This dude was like 6'4", big old country boy. And hands down, he was one of the kindest COs I've ever met in my life. And not just kindness like he was weak. This dude was a big old strong redneck country boy. He treated us like people, hands down. The whole time that I was there, the only time he ever wrote somebody up was when they fought in front of him. He used to hold a town hall where he calls in all the inmates out once a month. And he would say, listen here, I'm not here to babysit y'all. Y'all are grown-ass men. Don't come to me snitching. If you hear me walking around because I have to for the cameras and I see you doing a tattoo, just hide the tattoo gun for 2 seconds. He said, just don't be tattooing in front of me, man. Don't make me do my job. I don't give a damn if you guys tattoo. Yeah. When you hear the keys jingling, you know I'm walking. I'm going to make my keys loud so y'all know I'm coming. He said, when you hear it, put it right here by your side. As soon as I pass by the door, there you go. He said, if you want to drink, you want to get high, do it in your cell. Don't come out here acting wasted. Don't come out here screaming. He was a gangster, man. You know, he had a lot of gangster about him. And because of that, nobody gave him shit, man. Nobody talked trash about him. They did not disrespect him. They did not try to pull off heists on him. They wanted to make him look like the best CO in there. Man, it's really weird. Whenever you work that unit, nothing bad happens at all. And it's not just because he was laid back, but there's the middle ground meeting of we weren't screwing up. You know, we weren't going to do anything out in public to make him do his job. If dudes had to fight, they'd wait until his shift was over. We'll fight tomorrow, man. We're going to have to cool it down. And half the time they would end up not fighting after that, after the cooler heads prevailed. But, you know, I actually was in a room smoking one time, and that CO walked in the room, and we all panicked, put the thing out, you know, we're all sitting here like, and I blow a little smoke out, you know, and he walks in, and he kind of looks around the cell, and he looked at my cellmate who's like from a nearby, they had like the same favorite football team or something, like the Florida Gators or something. He's like, man, you saw that pass that happened at the end of the Gators game the other day? Completely ignored the fact that our cell had a haze in it, smelled like straight burning dip, was disgusting. We had an ashtray piece of toilet paper. Here you get a piece of toilet paper wet and ash your little cigarettes on it, you know, so you can flush it down the toilet afterwards and get rid of it. And completely ignored it. He didn't give a fuck. We weren't trying to disrespect him by smoking on a shift. We didn't know that he was going to be coming around that soon. You know, we thought we had a little bit more time. And this dude had the utmost respect, man. And because of that, he's just a good dude, man. And he got treated very respectfully by inmates. And inmates were glad to see him. Mostly because they knew they could relax a little bit. And also, you know, nobody was going to give him any shit, man. That's how it works. It's a mutual respect thing. So in conclusion with this, guys, treat all people kindly, please. You don't have to do favors for inmates if you're a CO out there. And I know there are some COs that watch my videos. I've talked to them. You don't have to do them favors necessarily, man, but just don't be a dick. Don't be the pat down guy. Don't be the shakedown guy. And I promise you, if you go a little bit easier on the inmates, I'm not necessarily saying that you have to do favors for them, but don't harm them. Don't be the shakedown guy and all that, man. You will see their respect level for you and the amount of bullshit that goes on during your shift go down exponentially. Give respect to get respect is a huge thing in federal prison, and I highly advise it on both sides. I'm not asking you to do them favors. I'm not saying you got to pass things from cell to cell, man, but respect. Don't talk to them like dogs. Don't cuss at them every time that they ask you something. When they ask you something, don't look at them like they're an animal that stinks, you know? Show a little compassion, guys. And I'm aware of the fact that none of those inmates, none of those COs that did kind things for us or for me, I'll never be able to repay them. They didn't do it for that. They didn't do it because, oh, one day this guy's going to be in a position where he can get me back. They did it because it was the right thing to do to treat somebody like a human being. And I recommend this for all people. Don't judge people based on their race, color, sexual orientation, religion. None of that shit matters, man. There's good people and bad people in everybody, and that includes inmates and that includes COs. Face every single encounter with every single human you meet, like with a fresh slate, man. We don't need to have predispositions towards each other. I promise you, it makes things a lot worse here on planet Earth, you know? Just show a little bit of compassion, treat people like equals, and don't think you're better than somebody else for some superficial bullshit, you know? And a lot of COs that follow that rule are the ones that have the most successful, long-lasting, little bullshit careers in the prison industry. All right, so to wrap this up, guys, rearranging the Twitch schedule next week. We're going to try a few nights where I'm going to start streaming at midnight my time, okay? I'm not sure exactly what it is yet. I'll probably do a community post about it or maybe even a short video or something like that just to let people know. But we're going to try it out, see if we can get some of the Australia squad, you know? And it's also peak hours for Twitch when, like, it's midnight here, or actually technically 2 a.m., I guess. So I figured I'd give it a shot, you know? And the Australians never get to catch my streams, but during my last 24-hour stream, a lot of Australians came in there and they're like, hey, man, finally, cool, good to meet you. So we're going to be doing that. I need to update the Patreon. Shit, I'll do that tonight. Remember, we got a Patreon, guys, as you'll see at the end of this video. If you're a minimum of $10 a month, you can do more if you want. You will get your name at the end of the video, and for $20 a month of a pledge, I will send you a handwritten note with my wife on it as well, and we will send you a Pokemon sticker. Where's my Pokemon stickers? Okay, well, these are band stickers that I have here, but we got Pokemon stickers too, and we will mail those to you wherever in the world you are. I actually have 2 that I need to mail out this upcoming Monday. But I love you guys, man. Stay happy, stay free, stay safe. Seek compromise in the middle ground with those who would oppose you. Don't see it only your way. Take into consideration the views of others and try to put yourself in someone else's shoes because you never really actually will be in their shoes, all right? I love you guys, man. I hope you have a beautiful week. And to those of you who still click on these videos despite the fact that I can't maintain a schedule because I'm a busy father that streams full-time, thank you guys, man. Thank you for, helping me realize the stream. I love y'all, man. Y'all have a beautiful week. And I'll see you next week, hopefully on actual Friday. I think I'm going to get a video editor to help me soon. Love you guys, man. Peace out.